Are my autistic sons dancing? Michael Warren's voice trembled, disbelief cracking his polished facade. In his Gold Coast mansion, Chicago's glittering skyline framed a lifeless palace where silence reigned. Michael, a white billionaire, buried himself in work to escape the void left by his wife's death 7 years ago. His twins, Liam and Lucas, white boys in red shirts, lived in their own world, autistic, mute, untouchable. Yet one afternoon, he pushed open his study door and froze. On his oak desk, the boys danced, arms flailing with joy. Below, Tiana, their black maid in a pale green uniform, her hair in a sleek, low bun, knelt, guiding their wordless rhythm. Could this moment heal a broken family? Or would it unravel everything? Stay to find out. The Gold Coast mansion stood like a monument to Michael Warren's empire, its granite walls and towering windows gleaming under Chicago's morning sun. Inside, though, the air was thick with a silence that clung to every polished surface, heavier than the marble floors. Michael, a white man of 38, strode through the grand foyer, his tailored black suit as sharp as his reputation in real estate. His pale blue eyes, once warm with ambition, now carried the dull sheen of a man defeated not by markets but by fatherhood. 7 years had passed since Emily's death, her frail body succumbing after giving life to their twins, Liam and Lucas. The boys, now 7, were locked in a world Michael couldn't reach. Autistic, mute, their faces mirrors of each other, but closed to him. He paused at the base of the spiral staircase, his hand grazing the cold banister. Upstairs, behind a door adorned with red stickers shaped like stars, his sons existed in their silent orbit. Liam and Lucas, white like their father, always wore matching red shirts, a habit from Emily's days when she dressed them to feel connected. They didn't speak, didn't look at him, didn't reach for his hand. Their world was a puzzle Michael had stopped trying to solve, each failed attempt a reminder of his inadequacy. He turned away, the familiar ache in his chest tightening. Work was waiting, deals to close, buildings to buy. It was easier than facing the door he never opened. In his study, a mahogany fortress lined with contracts and city blueprints, Michael sipped espresso from a machine that hummed louder than his home ever did. His phone buzzed with messages from Sarah Klein, his business partner, urging him to focus on a looming acquisition. He scanned the screen, numbers blurring as his mind wandered to the nannies who'd come and gone. There had been dozens, stern women with clipboards, cheerful ones with toys, all hired to break through to Liam and Lucas. None had. The last one, a brisk woman named Clara, quit after Lucas hurled a toy truck at her, his face blank but his hands trembling. Michael hadn't blamed her. He'd wanted to throw something himself. Today, a new maid was starting. Another desperate attempt, he thought, adjusting his cufflinks. He'd hired her through an agency, barely glancing at her file. What was her name? Tiana something. It didn't matter. She'd fold clothes, dust shelves, and fail like the rest. As he grabbed his briefcase, a faint clatter stopped him. A red toy car, small and scratched, rolled across the foyer floor, stopping at his polished shoes. Michael froze, his breath catching. The twins never left their room this early. He looked up the staircase, half expecting to see Liam or Lucas, but the hallway was empty. The car sat there, a tiny accusation. He picked it up, its weight heavier than it should have been, and set it on a side table. "Another day," he muttered, stepping out into the Chicago chill. Meanwhile, Tiana Johnson stepped off the bus at the edge of Gold Coast, her pale green maid's uniform crisp against her dark skin. At 28, she carried the resilience of a South Side upbringing, her childhood spent in foster homes where love was as scarce as heat in winter. Her hair, sleek and pulled into a low bun, swayed as she walked, her brown eyes scanning the mansion's towering facade. She'd seen wealth before, cleaning homes to pay her way through community college. But this was different, a palace that felt more like a mausoleum. Tiana clutched her bag, her grandmother's old spirituals echoing in her mind. "Keep your head up, child," she whispered to herself. "You know what it's like to be unseen." Inside, the housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis, a gray-haired woman with a clipboard, greeted her curtly. "Mr. Warren's already gone," she said, handing Tiana a list of tasks. "Clean the main floor, watch the boys. They're difficult. Don't expect them to talk." Tiana nodded, her gaze drifting to the staircase. She'd read the file, twins, autistic, nonverbal. But she knew more than the file could tell. She knew the ache of being a child no one understood, the longing for someone to see beyond the silence. Mrs. Ellis led her upstairs, past a door with red star stickers. Tiana peeked inside. Liam and Lucas sat on the floor, their red shirts bright against the pale carpet. Identical in their fair skin and dark hair, they arranged toy cars in perfect rows, their movements precise, almost ritualistic. Liam's hands moved slowly, deliberately. Lucas's were quicker, restless. They didn't look up, but Tiana felt their awareness, like a pulse in the room. "I'll be fine," she told Mrs. Ellis, who raised an eyebrow and left. Tiana knelt a few feet away, not too close, and opened her bag. She pulled out a small wooden box, a keepsake from her grandmother, and began arranging her own row of trinkets, buttons, a tiny stone, a shell. The twins' eyes flicked toward her, then away. She didn't speak, didn't push. Instead, she tapped a soft rhythm on the box, a beat from a song her grandmother used to sing. Lucas's head tilted, his body swaying slightly. Liam paused, his fingers hovering over a car. Tiana kept tapping, her heart quickening. Was this a start? Downstairs, Michael's driver navigated Chicago's bustling streets toward his downtown office. His mind churned. Sarah's warnings, the acquisition, the toy car. Why had it been in the foyer? He shook his head, trying to focus on the skyline ahead, its steel towers a testament to his control. Yet the car lingered in his thoughts, a small, red question mark. He didn't know that in his absence, Tiana's quiet rhythm was stirring something in his sons, a spark that hadn't flickered in years. Back in the twins' room, Tiana noticed Lucas's swaying grow stronger, matching her beat. She hummed softly, barely audible, and set a red button in her row, mirroring their cars. Liam's eyes locked on it, his hand twitching. Then in a movement so sudden it stole her breath, he pushed a red car toward her, not gently but with purpose, as if testing her. Tiana caught it, her smile steady. "Thank you," she said softly, placing it beside her button. Liam didn't look away. Lucas tapped the floor, mimicking her rhythm. The room for a moment felt alive. Tiana's heart raced. She knew this wasn't just a job. These boys, like her younger self, were reaching out in the only way they could. She glanced at the door, its red stickers glowing faintly. Somewhere in this silent house, a door was opening. Not the one Michael avoided, but one deeper, one that could change everything. What would happen when he saw it? Would he run from it again, or step through? Tiana Johnson knelt on the plush carpet of the twins' room, her pale green maid's uniform catching the soft glow of morning light filtering through the mansion's tall windows. Her heart still raced from Liam's gesture. The red toy car he'd pushed toward her, a small, deliberate act that felt like a whispered secret. Her brown eyes, warm with the weight of her own lonely childhood, studied the boys. Liam, his fair face focused, clutched another car, his fingers tracing its edges as if it held answers. Lucas, more restless, rocked gently, his red shirt shifting with each sway. Tiana's sleek, low bun brushed her neck as she leaned forward, her breath steadying. She'd known isolation, growing up in Southside's foster homes, where no one saw past her quiet exterior. These boys, she thought, were not so different. She tapped the wooden box again, the rhythm slow and deliberate, echoing a spiritual her grandmother once sang to chase away the dark. Lucas's swaying intensified, his dark hair falling into his eyes, and Tiana felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't just the rhythm, it was the connection, fragile but real, threading through the silence. Liam's gaze flicked to her, not meeting her eyes but lingering on the red button she'd placed in her row of trinkets. His hand twitched, as if fighting an urge to reach out again. Tiana's chest tightened with a mix of joy and caution. She'd learned early not to push too hard. Children like her, like them, needed space to trust. Downstairs, Michael Warren's driver weaved through Chicago's morning traffic, the city's steel spires looming like sentinels of his empire. In the back seat, Michael's pale blue eyes stared blankly at his phone, Sarah Klein's messages flashing with urgency. "We need you at the meeting." Don't be late. But his mind was elsewhere, snagged on the red toy car from the foyer. Why had it been there? His sons never left their room unprompted. The image gnawed at him, stirring a guilt he'd buried under contracts and boardrooms. Emily's voice echoed in his memory, her soft lullabies, her hope for their boys to know love. He'd failed her, failed them, choosing skyscrapers over their silent world. His fingers tightened around his briefcase, the leather creaking. Focus, he muttered, but the car's red shine lingered like a question he couldn't answer. Back in the twins' room, Tiana hummed softly, her voice a low thread weaving through the rhythm of her taps. She didn't expect words from Liam or Lucas, but she felt their attention, a shift in the air. Lucas's rocking synced with her beat, his hands flapping lightly, a sign of excitement she recognized from her own childhood when music was her only refuge. She smiled, her heart swelling. "You feel that, don't you?" she whispered, not expecting a reply. But Lucas's flapping grew faster, his lips parting in a silent giggle. Liam, still clutching his car, leaned closer, his fingers brushing the carpet near her trinkets. Tiana held her breath, afraid to break the moment. She added a new rhythm, faster, her fingers dancing on the box. Lucas mimicked her, tapping the floor with surprising precision. Tiana's thoughts drifted to her grandmother's kitchen, where she'd learned those rhythms, sitting on a cracked linoleum floor while spirituals filled the air. She'd been 6, younger than these boys, when she realized no one else would sing for her. Now she sang for them, her voice barely audible but steady. Liam's hand moved, startling her. He placed another red car beside her button, not looking at her but deliberate, as if saying, "I see you." Tiana's eyes stung, but she kept her smile. "That's it, Liam," she said softly. "We're building something here." Lucas tapped harder, his giggle breaking into a soft hum, a sound so rare it felt like a gift. Across town, Michael stepped into his downtown office, a glass fortress overlooking Lake Michigan. Sarah Klein greeted him with a frown, her sharp eyes scanning his distracted expression. "You're late," she said, her tone clipped. "The investors are waiting." Michael nodded, forcing a smile, but his mind was still on the toy car, on the door he hadn't opened. He took his seat at the head of the table, numbers and charts flashing on screens, but they felt hollow. His sons were upstairs in that silent mansion, and for the first time, he wondered what he was missing. Sarah's voice droned on, but Michael's thoughts kept circling back to the red stickers on their door, the ones Emily had chosen. What did they mean to Liam and Lucas? Did they mean anything at all? In the mansion, Tiana stood to stretch, her green uniform rustling. She glanced at the boys who were now arranging their cars in a new pattern, a circle around her trinkets. She felt a pang of pride, mixed with fear. She'd connected with them, but what if it wasn't enough? What if their father, with his cold commands, sent her away like the others? She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the boys. "Let's try something new," she said, pulling a small bell from her bag. Its chime was soft, barely a whisper, but Lucas's head snapped up, his eyes wide. He reached for it, his fingers brushing hers, a touch so fleeting it might have been imagined. Tiana's heart leaped. Lucas didn't pull away. She rang the bell again, watching Liam's reaction. He didn't reach, but his eyes followed the sound, his body still but alert. Tiana kept the rhythm going, mixing the bell's chime with her taps. The room felt different now, less like a cage and more like a space where something could grow. She thought of her grandmother's words. "Find the rhythm in their hearts, child." She was finding it, note by note, in these boys who reminded her so much of herself. Michael's meeting dragged on, his voice steady as he outlined acquisition plans, but his heart wasn't in it. Sarah's sharp glance caught his distraction, and she leaned in after the investors left. "What's going on, Michael? You're not here." He forced a shrug, his mind flashing to the toy car, to the twins' door. "Just tired," he lied, but the weight in his chest grew heavier. He didn't know that upstairs, Tiana was weaving a thread of trust with his sons, a thread that could either pull him closer or unravel everything he'd built. Tiana sat back on the carpet, her eyes never leaving Liam and Lucas. Lucas was still tapping, his red shirt swaying, while Liam began stacking cars, his movements slower but precise. She saw herself in them, the girl who'd built walls to survive, only to find safety in a song. She didn't know what their father would think of her, or if he'd ever see what she saw. But as Lucas hummed again, and Liam added another car to her circle, Tiana knew she wasn't just a maid. She was a spark, and this house, so long a tomb, was starting to flicker with life. What would happen when Michael saw it? Would he embrace it or turn away? Tiana Johnson's fingers lingered on the small brass bell, its faint chime still echoing in the twins' room, a fragile thread of sound weaving through the mansion's heavy silence. Her pale green maid's uniform clung to her as she sat back, her sleek, low bun brushing her neck, her brown eyes fixed on Liam and Lucas. The boys, their red shirts bright against their fair skin, were lost in their world of toy cars and trinkets. But the air felt different now, charged, alive. Lucas's hands flapped gently, his earlier hum lingering in Tiana's heart like a melody she'd thought lost. Liam, quieter, clutched a red car, his pale eyes flicking toward her, not meeting her gaze but softer, as if he sensed the safety she offered. Tiana's chest swelled with a mix of joy and fear. She'd been that child, alone in foster homes, reaching for connection only to find walls. Could she be the bridge these boys needed, or would this fragile spark flicker out? She set the bell down, her hands trembling with the weight of the moment. Lucas's flapping slowed, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he rocked, his red shirt swaying like a metronome. Tiana's heart ached. She knew that rhythm, the way it anchored a restless soul. She'd rocked like that in Southside foster homes when no one else saw her. "You're singing your own song, aren't you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Lucas's lips twitched, not a smile but close, and Tiana felt tears prick her eyes. Liam's fingers tightened on his car, his body still but alert, as if he too felt the shift in the room. Tiana reached for a piece of paper from her bag, a habit from her childhood when drawing kept her grounded. She sketched a simple star, red like the stickers on their door, and slid it toward Liam. His hand paused, hovering, then touched the edge, a gesture so small yet so heavy. Across Chicago, Michael Warren paced his downtown office, the city's skyline a blur beyond the glass. His pale blue eyes, shadowed with unrest, darted to his phone, where Sarah Klein's messages piled up, sharp and demanding. "We need you focused, Michael. This deal's make or break." But his mind was elsewhere, snagged on the red toy car, on Liam's tower of cars, on Lucas's fleeting hum he'd heard from a distance. His heart churned with a guilt he couldn't name. Emily's face flashed in his memory, her gentle smile, her hands dressing the boys in red, her whispered promise that they'd know joy. He'd buried that promise under boardroom battles, but now it clawed at him, relentless. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his vest creaking as he leaned against the desk. "What am I doing?" he muttered, the words lost in the hum of his office. Tiana unfolded the paper, sketching another star, this time green like her uniform. She didn't know it was her birthday until she glanced at the kitchen calendar later that day, the date marked in green ink from a habit of planning her week. She'd forgotten. Birthdays in foster homes were rarely celebrated. But the sight stirred something in her. She turned to the boys, her voice soft. "Today's a special day," she said, not expecting them to understand. But Lucas's head tilted, his eyes catching the calendar. Liam's fingers stilled, his car resting on the star she'd drawn. Tiana's heart skipped. Did they sense it? She began humming a spiritual her grandmother loved, a low, soulful melody that filled the room like a warm breeze. Lucas swayed, his hands flapping faster, and Liam leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers. In his office, Michael's meeting loomed, but he couldn't focus. Sarah's voice cut through, sharp as ever. "Michael, you're distracted again. What's going on?" He forced a smile, his jaw tight. "Just a rough morning," he said, but the lie tasted bitter. He thought of the twins' door, those red stickers Emily had chosen. What were they doing now? Were they still stacking cars, lost in their silent world? He didn't know that Tiana was coaxing them out, note by note, with a song he'd never heard. His phone buzzed again, but he ignored it, his gaze drifting to the window. Chicago's pulse mocked his own, a heart racing towards something he couldn't name. Tiana stood, her uniform rustling as she moved to the kitchen, the boys trailing behind. A first. She felt their eyes on her, cautious but curious, and her heart pounded with a mix of pride and nervousness. In the kitchen, she found crayons and paper, leftovers from a previous nanny. She set them on the table, sketching a cake with wobbly candles. "This is for today," she said, smiling. Lucas reached for a red crayon, scribbling a jagged line next to her cake. Liam, slower, drew a green shape, uneven but deliberate. Tiana's breath caught. Were they trying to join her? She hummed louder, her voice rising, and tapped a rhythm on the table. Lucas giggled, a sound so bright it startled her, and climbed onto the table, his red shirt swaying as he moved. Liam followed, his movements hesitant but determined, his hands flapping to her beat. Tiana's eyes stung as she knelt, her uniform pooling around her, guiding their rhythm with her taps. The boys' laughter, silent but alive in their movements, filled her with a warmth she hadn't felt since her grandmother's kitchen. She thought of those lonely birthdays when she'd draw cakes no one saw. Now these boys were drawing with her, their red and green lines a fragile promise. She sang softly, her voice trembling, and the boys swayed, their hands waving like flags of joy. The kitchen felt alive, its silence broken by a dance only they understood. Tiana's heart swelled, but doubt lingered. Would their father, with his cold distance, see this beauty, or would he shut it down? Michael left his office early, a rare choice that left Sarah fuming. He didn't care. The toy car, the hum, the red stickers. They pulled him home, a tide he couldn't resist. His driver navigated Chicago's streets, the mansion's granite facade looming closer. His heart raced, a mix of dread and longing. What was happening in that house? Were his sons still lost, or was something stirring? He gripped the car door, his knuckles white. He didn't know that Tiana's song was weaving a spell, that Liam and Lucas were reaching out in ways he'd never seen. As he approached the mansion, the silence he'd always known felt different, charged, expectant, like the calm before a storm. Tiana watched the boys, her hands steady despite the tears threatening to spill. Lucas's giggles, Liam's tentative waves, they were a language she spoke, a language born of loneliness and hope. She didn't know Michael was nearing, his footsteps heavy with a father's unspoken failures. She only knew this moment. This dance was a beginning. But would it last? Would the man who barely saw her see his sons? As Lucas tapped the table and Liam drew another star, Tiana felt the weight of their trust, a gift she'd carry no matter what came next. Tiana Johnson knelt on the hardwood floor of Michael Warren's study, her pale green maid's uniform pulling around her, her sleek, low bun brushing her neck as she tapped a rhythm on the edge of his oak desk. Her brown eyes, alight with a warmth she hadn't felt since her grandmother's kitchen, followed Liam and Lucas, who stood atop the desk, their red shirts glowing under the chandelier's soft light. The twins, fair-skinned and identical, danced with an abandon Tiana had never seen. Lucas's hands flapped wildly, his dark hair bouncing, while Liam's movements were slower, deliberate, his pale eyes fixed on the rhythm she guided. Papers, contracts worth millions, lay scattered beneath their feet, but Tiana didn't care. Her heart pounded with a joy so fierce it scared her. These boys, locked in their silent world, were singing through their motions, and she was their conductor. But beneath her smile, a shadow lingered. Would their father, a man who barely saw her, understand this moment? Lucas giggled, a high, clear sound that pierced the study's stillness, his red shirt swaying as he spun. Liam, quieter, swayed too, his hands tracing arcs in the air, mimicking Tiana's taps. She hummed a spiritual, her voice low and soulful, the same melody that had carried her through Southside's lonely nights. Her chest ached with a mix of pride and fear. She'd been that child, unseen, reaching for connection. Now these boys reached back, their dance a language she understood. She glanced at the crumpled drawings on the desk, red and green stick figures, a wobbly cake, gifts from their hearts. Her eyes stung, but she kept humming, kept tapping, afraid to break the spell. What would happen if Michael walked in? Would he see the beauty or only the chaos? Michael's footsteps echoed through the mansion's foyer, his heart racing as he climbed the stairs. He'd left his office early, Sarah Klein's warnings ringing in his ears. "You're slipping, Michael. The investors are watching." But the pull of home, of that red toy car, of the hum he'd heard, was stronger. His pale blue eyes, shadowed with guilt, darted to the twins' door as he passed, its red stickers a silent accusation. He hadn't opened it in weeks, afraid of the emptiness in Liam and Lucas's gazes. His hand tightened on his briefcase, the leather creaking. He didn't know why he'd come to the study instead of his usual retreat to the living room, but something, a whisper, a need, drew him there. His pulse quickened, a storm brewing in his chest. Tiana's hum grew softer, her fingers slowing as she watched Lucas spin, his laughter bubbling up like a spring. Liam's swaying matched hers, his hands brushing the desk, feeling the rhythm through the wood. She knelt lower, her uniform brushing the floor, her heart swelling with a love she hadn't expected. She thought of her own birthdays, spent alone, drawing cakes no one saw. These boys had seen her, had drawn her into their world with crayons and trust. She tapped faster, urging them on, and Lucas clapped, his giggle echoing. Liam's eyes flicked to her, not meeting hers but close, a spark of connection that made her breath catch. She didn't hear the footsteps, didn't see the door creak open. Michael pushed the study door, his breath hitching as the scene unfolded. His sons, his silent, unreachable sons, stood on his oak desk, their red shirts blazing as they danced, arms flailing with a joy he'd never seen. Papers, his life's work, lay crumpled beneath their feet. Below, Tiana, her dark skin glowing, knelt in her pale green uniform, her hair in a sleek, low bun, her hands tapping a rhythm that seemed to pulse through the room. His voice, sharp as a blade, cut through the air. "What the hell is this?" The twins froze, Lucas's giggle dying, Liam's hands dropping. Their eyes, wide with fear, darted to the floor. Tiana stood, her movements calm but deliberate, her brown eyes meeting his without flinching. "They're happy, Mr. Warren," she said, her voice steady. "They're reaching out." Michael's anger surged, then faltered. His gaze fell to the drawings. Red and green stick figures, a cake with uneven candles. His throat tightened, a wave of shame crashing over him. These were his sons, dancing, laughing, alive in a way he'd never witnessed. He'd spent years avoiding their silence, hiding in boardrooms, while this woman, a maid he'd barely acknowledged, had unlocked their joy. How did you do this?" he whispered, his voice cracking. Tiana gestured to the drawings, her expression soft but firm. "They've always had this in them. They just needed someone to see it." Michael's chest burned, Emily's memory flooding back, her hope, her love, her belief in their boys. He'd failed her, but Tiana hadn't. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on Liam, who clutched a red car, his body tense. Lucas, still on the desk, rocked slightly, his hands twitching. Michael's heart splintered. He saw their faces, Emily's eyes, her nose, and for the first time, he saw their spirits, bright and alive. "I didn't know," he said, his voice barely audible. Tiana nodded, her bun gleaming under the light. "They've been waiting, Mr. Warren, for you." The words hit like a punch, stripping away his defenses. He'd built an empire, but here in his own study, he was powerless, a father who'd turned away from his son's light. Michael's gaze dropped to the scattered papers, his life's work now insignificant. He thought of Emily's lullabies, her promise that their boys would know joy. Tiana had found that joy, while he'd been blind. His hands trembled, the weight of his failures pressing down. "Stay," he said, almost a plea. "Please, they need you." Tiana's eyes searched his, testing his sincerity. She nodded, a quiet strength in her stance. "They need you too," she said, her voice a challenge and a hope. Michael swallowed, his heart racing. He didn't know how to begin, but the drawings, the dance, the life in his son's eyes, they were a start, a crack in the wall he'd built. As Tiana knelt again, guiding Lucas down from the desk, Michael stood frozen, his mind reeling. Liam's hand brushed hers, a tentative trust that pierced him. He'd been a stranger in his own home, but this moment, chaotic, beautiful, changed something deep within. He didn't know what came next, but for the first time, he wanted to stay, to see, to learn. Tiana's hum lingered in the air, a melody that held the promise of a family reborn. Would he rise to meet it or let it slip away? Michael Warren stood in the doorway of his study, his pale blue eyes locked on the oak desk where moments ago his sons had danced, their red shirts a blur of joy now etched into his soul. The scattered papers, contracts that once defined him, lay forgotten, their worth paling against the drawings of red and green stick figures clutched in Liam's small hand. His heart pounded, a storm of shame and longing swirling within. Tiana Johnson, her pale green maid's uniform soft against her dark skin, her hair in a sleek low bun, knelt beside Lucas, guiding him down with a gentleness that pierced Michael. Her words, "They need you too," hung in the air, a challenge he wasn't ready for but couldn't ignore. His throat tightened, Emily's memory flooding back, her voice whispering that their boys deserved love. He'd failed her for years, but now, seeing Liam's tentative grip and Lucas's fleeting glance, he felt a pull he couldn't resist. Tiana's brown eyes met his, steady and searching, as she stood, her uniform rustling. Lucas, his red shirt swaying, rocked gently, his hands flapping. A sign of calm, she'd explained. Liam, quieter, pressed the drawing to his chest, his fair face unreadable but softer. Michael's chest ached. He'd spent years avoiding their silence, building walls of work to shield himself from their world. Now those walls were crumbling, and he was terrified. "I don't know how," he admitted, his voice low, raw. Tiana's expression softened, but her voice held firm. "Start by watching, Mr. Warren. They're already showing you." Michael swallowed, his gaze dropping to the drawings. Red for them, green for her, a family he hadn't been part of. Until now. Across Chicago, Michael's office buzzed with urgency, but he wasn't there. Sarah Klein's messages piled up on his phone, her tone sharp. "Where are you? The investors are furious." He ignored them, his world shrinking to the room where his son stood. He took a step forward, his polished shoes heavy on the hardwood, and knelt awkwardly beside Liam. The boy didn't look at him, but his fingers twitched, as if sensing his father's presence. Michael's heart raced, fear and hope colliding. He thought of Emily's hands, gentle as she dressed them in red, her belief that they'd find joy. Tiana tapped the desk lightly, a rhythm that grounded Lucas, and Michael mimicked it, his fingers clumsy. Lucas's rocking slowed, his eyes flicking toward him, not meeting but aware. Michael's breath caught. Was this what connection felt like? Tiana watched, her heart a tangle of hope and caution. She'd seen trust flicker in the twins, but their father was a mystery, a man whose cold commands masked a pain she recognized. Growing up in Southside's foster homes, she'd known men like him, hiding behind walls to survive. Yet his plea, "Stay," had carried a sincerity that stirred her. She knelt again, her uniform brushing the floor, and handed Liam a crayon. "Draw with us," she said softly, glancing at Michael. He hesitated, his pale hands unsteady, then took a red crayon, sketching a shaky line next to Liam's star. Liam paused, then added another, his shoulder brushing Michael's. The contact, fleeting but real, sent a jolt through Michael's chest. He looked at Tiana, her bun gleaming under the chandelier, and saw not just a maid but a guide. In the quiet, Michael's thoughts churned. He'd built skyscrapers, closed deals that shaped Chicago's skyline. But here, he was a novice, stumbling in a world of gestures and glances. Lucas flapped his hands, a giggle escaping, and Michael's heart lurched. He'd never heard that sound before. Not like this. Not so free. He tapped the desk again, mimicking Tiana's rhythm, and Lucas matched it, his red shirt swaying. Tiana's smile, warm and steady, anchored him. "That's it," she said, her voice a lifeline. "They feel you." Michael's eyes stung, shame mingling with a fragile hope. He'd been a stranger to his sons, but now in this room, he was beginning to see them, not as puzzles to solve, but as boys with hearts as vast as his own. Tiana's fingers brushed Lucas's arm, guiding his flapping into a gentler rhythm. She thought of her grandmother's spirituals, how they'd carried her through loneliness. These boys were her song now, their trust a melody she hadn't expected. But Michael's presence, awkward and earnest, stirred a new fear. Would he stay or retreat to his world of contracts? She glanced at him, his pale face etched with vulnerability, and felt a flicker of hope. He was trying, and that was more than she'd expected. She handed him a green crayon, her voice soft. "Add to their world, Mr. Warren." He nodded, his hand trembling as he drew a line, green like her uniform next to Liam's star. Liam's eyes flicked to it, a spark of recognition. Michael's mind flashed to Emily, her laughter as she'd painted those red stickers on their door. He'd thought the twins' silence was a barrier, a failure, but now he saw it differently, a language he could learn. His fingers tightened on the crayon, his heart pounding. He didn't know how to be their father, but for the first time, he wanted to try. Lucas's giggle rang out again, and Michael's lips twitched, a smile he hadn't felt in years. Tiana's rhythm kept them grounded, her presence a bridge he was desperate to cross. He looked at her, her strength a beacon, and felt a gratitude that burned. She'd seen his sons when he hadn't, and now he wanted to see too. Outside, Chicago's skyline glittered, but Michael barely noticed. His world was here, in the study, with his son's laughter and Tiana's steady hum. Sarah's messages buzzed, unanswered, but they felt distant, irrelevant. He thought of the acquisition, the empire he'd built, but it paled against the red and green lines on the paper before him. Liam's hand brushed his again, and Michael's breath hitched. He didn't know what this meant, but it felt like a beginning, a chance to be more than the man who'd walked away. Tiana's eyes met his, her smile a quiet encouragement, and he nodded, his heart raw but open. Tiana watched Michael, her heart a mix of hope and caution. She'd seen trust bloom in the twins, but their father's journey was just starting. She knew the weight of reaching out, the fear of being unseen. As Lucas flapped and Liam drew, she felt their trust, a gift she'd guard fiercely. Michael's clumsy lines, his tentative taps, they were steps, small but real. She hummed softly, her voice weaving through the room, and felt the mansion shift, its silence softening. Would Michael stay this time? Would he learn their song? As Liam added another star and Lucas giggled, Tiana knew she'd keep singing, for them and for the man who was finally listening. Michael Warren knelt on the study floor, his pale blue eyes fixed on Liam's small hand, clutching the red crayon, the green line he'd drawn, a clumsy attempt at connection, now part of his son's star. His heart hammered, a turbulent sea of regret and resolve churning within. Tiana Johnson, her pale green maid's uniform a beacon of calm, her sleek, low bun framing her steady gaze, watched him with quiet encouragement. Lucas, his red shirt swaying, flapped his hands gently, a giggle escaping as he rocked, the sound piercing Michael's soul. He'd heard laughter before, but not like this. Not from his sons, not born of joy he'd helped create. Emily's face flashed in his mind, her gentle smile urging him forward. He'd hidden from this for years, but now, with Tiana's rhythm still echoing in his ears, he felt exposed, raw, desperate to hold on to this fragile thread. Tiana's brown eyes softened as she handed him another crayon. "Keep going, Mr. Warren," she said, her voice a lifeline in the storm. Michael's fingers trembled, his vest creaking as he leaned in. He drew a circle around Liam's star, his hand brushing his son's. Liam didn't pull away, his fair face focused, but a spark, subtle, fleeting, lit his eyes. Michael's throat tightened, tears pricking as guilt washed over him. He'd been a ghost in their lives, chasing deals while they navigated their world alone. Tiana's presence, her strength, shamed him. She, a stranger from Southside's shadows, had seen his sons when he hadn't. "I should have been here," he whispered, his voice breaking. Tiana nodded, her expression a mix of compassion and challenge. "You're here now." Lucas's giggle bubbled up again, his hands flapping faster, and Michael reached out, his palm open. Lucas's fingers grazed his, a touch so light it shattered him. His heart soared and ached, fear mingling with hope. What if he ruined this? What if his world of boardrooms pulled him back? His phone buzzed in his pocket, Sarah Klein's insistent tone cutting through. He silenced it, but the vibration lingered, a reminder of the empire demanding his allegiance. Tiana tapped the floor, grounding Lucas, and Michael mimicked her, his rhythm awkward but earnest. Liam added another line, green like Tiana's uniform, and Michael's chest swelled. This was his family, not the contracts downstairs. In his downtown office, Sarah Klein paced, her sharp eyes flicking to her phone. Michael's absence gnawed at her, meetings unattended, deals hanging. She fired off another message. Board's calling an emergency session. Your distractions are costing us. Her heart raced with frustration and worry. Michael had been her partner, a force in Chicago's real estate. But lately he was slipping, his focus fractured. She didn't know about the dance, the drawings, the hum that had cracked his armor. She only saw the empire teetering, and it terrified her. Michael rose from the floor, his legs unsteady as Tiana guided the twins to their room. He followed, his gaze on their red shirts, their steps a rhythm he was learning. In the hallway, he paused at their door, the red stickers Emily had chosen glowing faintly. He'd avoided this threshold, but now he crossed it, his heart pounding. Liam sat on the carpet arranging cars while Lucas rocked with a toy. Tiana knelt beside them, her uniform rustling, her voice soft as she hummed. Michael joined, sitting awkwardly, his vest tight. He picked up a red car, mirroring Liam's pattern, and Liam's eyes flicked to it, a silent acknowledgement. Michael's breath caught, joy and sorrow colliding. He was here, but the pull of his phone, buzzing again, tugged at him. Sarah's call came through, her voice sharp when he answered. Michael, the board's furious. Carolyn Winters is pushing for a vote. Your position's on the line. Michael's jaw tightened, his gaze on Lucas's flapping hands. Carolyn, his vice president, ambitious and calculating, had been waiting for this slip. Handle it, he said, his tone firm but distant. Sarah's frustration boiled over. This isn't you. What's going on? He glanced at Tiana, her low bun catching the light, and felt a resolve harden. Family, he said, hanging up. The word felt foreign but true. Tiana's eyes met his, a question in them. She didn't know the storm brewing in his office, but she saw the conflict in his face. Her heart ached. She'd fought her own battles, invisible in foster homes. But this man, with his wealth and walls, was fighting too. She tapped a rhythm, grounding the twins, and Michael joined, his fingers finding the beat. Lucas giggled, and Liam leaned closer, his shoulder brushing Michael's. Tiana's chest tightened with hope. He was trying, but would the world outside let him? The doorbell rang, pulling Michael from the moment. He descended the stairs, his heart heavy, to find Mrs. Helen, Emily's mother, at the door. Her silver hair impeccable, her eyes sharp, she stepped in, her presence a gust of judgment. Michael, she said, her voice crisp, I heard you've been absent. He led her to the living room, his jaw set. Helen's gaze swept the mansion, landing on Tiana descending the stairs, her green uniform a stark contrast. The maids with the boys again? This isn't right. Michael's blood heated. Helen had always pushed for therapies, fixes for Liam and Lucas, echoing her grief for Emily. They need specialists, not playtime, she said, her tone laced with disdain. Michael's resolve ignited. He thought of the dance, the drawings, the giggles. They need love, Helen. Tiana sees them. Helen's eyes narrowed. Emily would want them normal? The word stung, but Michael stood tall. They are normal. Their world is different, but it's theirs. Helen's face hardened, her grief twisting into anger. You're letting a maid decide? Emily deserved better. Michael's heart broke for her, but his sons came first. Emily wanted them happy, he said, his voice steady, and they are with Tiana. Helen left, her departure a storm cloud, but Michael felt a fire kindled. He'd defended them, a step he'd never taken. Upstairs, Tiana hummed to the twins, her heart a whirlwind. She didn't know Helen's words, but she felt the mansion's tension. Lucas rocked, Liam arranged cars, their trust a balm to her fears. Michael returned, his face etched with resolve. He knelt beside them, his hand brushing Lucas's, and Tiana saw the change. A father emerging from shadows. Her eyes stung. She'd been unseen, but now she was part of this. As Michael tapped the floor, syncing with her rhythm, she felt hope bloom. He was choosing them, but the storm outside, his empire, his past, loomed. Would it pull him away? Michael's thoughts raced, Helen's words echoing, Sarah's warnings buzzing. He looked at his sons, their red shirts a symbol of Emily's love, and felt a fierce protectiveness. He'd built walls, but now he was tearing them down, gesture by gesture. Tiana's hum wrapped around them, a melody of possibility. He didn't know the battles ahead, but in this moment, with his son's eyes flickering toward him, he knew he'd fight. Michael Warren stood in the garden of his Gold Coast mansion, the Chicago skyline a distant shimmer under a moonlit sky. His pale blue eyes, once dulled by years of grief, now burned with a quiet resolve, his heart pounding with a love he'd thought lost. Beside him, Tiana Johnson, her pale green uniform replaced by a simple dress that caught the moonlight. Her sleek, low bun, gleaming, held his hand, her brown eyes searching his with a warmth that anchored him. Liam and Lucas, their red shirts vibrant even in the dusk, played nearby, their hands flapping as they chased fireflies, their silent laughter a melody Michael was learning to hear. His chest ached with a joy so raw it frightened him. He'd faced Helen's judgment, Sarah's warnings, the board's threats. But here, in this moment, he was choosing his family, his sons, and the woman who'd shown him their light. Tiana's fingers tightened around his, her heart a whirlwind of hope and fear. She'd grown up invisible, a South Side orphan who'd found solace in songs no one else heard. Now she stood beside a man who'd once been a stranger, his pale face etched with a vulnerability she hadn't expected. Liam's giggle broke through, a high, clear sound as he caught a firefly, his red shirt swaying. Lucas, more restless, spun in circles, his hands tracing patterns in the air. Tiana's eyes stung, her childhood flashing back, nights spent dreaming of a family, of belonging. She'd given these boys her heart, but Michael's presence, his choice to stay, stirred a new longing. Could this be her home too? Michael knelt, his vest creasing as he beckoned Liam. The boy approached, his fair face cautious but open, a red crayon in his hand. He offered a drawing, stick figures in red, green, and now blue, a family under a moon. Michael's throat tightened, tears threatening. Emily's memory lingered, her love for their boys woven into those red shirts. But Tiana had brought that love to life. He looked at her, her strength a beacon, and felt a surge of courage. "Tiana," he said, his voice low, trembling. "You gave me my sons, you gave me us. Will you stay? Not just for them, but for me?" Her breath caught, her eyes wide with a hope she'd buried long ago. She nodded, a smile breaking through, radiant as the moon. Lucas ran to them, his giggle echoing, and Liam followed, their red shirts glowing as they wrapped their arms around Tiana and Michael. The embrace, clumsy but fierce, shattered Michael's last defenses. He'd been a man of walls, boardrooms, contracts, silence, but now he was here, holding his family. Tiana's heart raced, her tears falling as she felt the boys' warmth, their trust a gift she'd never expected. She thought of her grandmother's spirituals, how they'd carried her through loneliness. Now she was singing a new song, one woven with the boys' laughter and Michael's quiet strength. She looked at him, his pale eyes glistening, and saw not just a father, but a man choosing to love. The mansion behind them, once a tomb, pulsed with life. Michael had transformed a wing into a center for autistic children, a space where families could learn what he'd learned. That love spoke in gestures and presence. Tiana, no longer a maid but the center's director, had poured her heart into it, her green dress a symbol of the light she brought. Michael stood, his hand still in hers, and led them inside, the boys trailing behind, their hands flapping. In the living room, drawings covered the walls, Liam's stars, Lucas's jagged lines, a testament to their growth. Michael's chest swelled with pride, but also fear. He'd faced the board, defied Helen, But the world outside still loomed, its demands relentless. Could he hold on to this? Tiana sensed his unease, her heart aching. She'd known uncertainty, the fear of losing what little she had. But Michael's choice, his hand in hers, was a promise. She knelt beside Lucas, who was arranging toys in a circle, and tapped a rhythm, grounding him. Michael joined, his fingers clumsy but earnest, and Lucas giggled, his red shirt swaying. Liam added a card to the circle, his eyes flicking to Michael, a silent trust. Tiana's smile trembled. She'd been invisible, but now she was seen, not just by the boys but by the man beside her. "You're doing it," she said softly, her voice a melody of hope. Michael nodded, his heart raw but full. In his office days ago, Sarah Klein had called, her voice sharp. "Carolyn's got the votes, Michael. Step up or you're out." He'd faced the board, his resolve unshaken, and pitched his vision. Buildings designed for autistic families, with soft lights and quiet spaces. The board had paused, intrigued, but Carolyn's eyes had burned with ambition. Michael didn't care. His empire was no longer steel and glass. It was here, in the laughter of his sons, in Tiana's steady gaze. He'd returned home that night, his heart lighter, and found Tiana teaching Liam a new rhythm, her low bun catching the light. He joined them, his presence a vow. Now in the living room, Michael sat with his family, the moonlight streaming through the windows. Liam's drawing rested on his lap, the blue stick figure, him, a part of their world. He thought of Emily, her love woven into this moment, and felt peace. Tiana's hand brushed his, her touch grounding him. "We're enough," she said, her voice steady. Michael nodded, tears falling. He'd been a man of absence, but now he was here, his heart open. Lucas's giggle rang out, Liam's hand brushed his, and Tiana's smile lit the room. This was his empire now. The center thrived, families filling its halls, learning what Michael had. That love didn't need words. Tiana, her dress bright, led with a strength that awed him. He watched her now, guiding Lucas, and felt a love deeper than he'd known. The boys, their red shirts a constant, played with a freedom he'd never imagined. Liam's drawings lined the center's walls. Lucas's energy filled its rooms. Michael stood, pulling Tiana close, the boys joining them. The mansion, once silent, sang with life. He didn't know what challenges awaited, but with Tiana's hand in his son's laughter in his ears, he knew he'd face them. They were a family forged in moonlight, bound by love. Michael, Tiana, Liam, and Lucas stood under Chicago's moonlight, their hands entwined, a family reborn from silence and love. Their story, of unseen hearts finding rhythm, of a father stepping into his son's world, leaves a question for you. Has someone ever lit a spark in your life when you least expected it? Share your thoughts below. Let us hear your heart. Thank you for joining us in this journey of connection, for feeling their joy and pain. Come back soon for more stories that might just change how you see the world.